So I think now it's clear that we are going to be leaving the single market. It's clear that we will no longer have freedom of movement, and in particular freedom of movement of workers. And I think this has two key implications for the labour market. The first is that we're likely to see future skill shortages, particularly in high-skilled sectors such as health, finance, education, but also labour shortages in low-skilled sectors such as agriculture and hospitality. And this is because these are the sectors that are currently the most reliant on EU workers. EU workers currently take up jobs in the labour market that British workers either cannot do because they lack the necessary skills to do these jobs, or will not do because of the low pay and poor working conditions associated with these jobs. If you look at, for example, just Romanian Bulgarian workers who have come to the UK in increasing numbers over recent years, they make up 20% of all workers in banking and financial services and 29% of all workers in the construction sector. So it's safe to say that these are the sorts of sectors that post-Brexit will have to consider other ways to source their skills, the skills and the labour that they need. I think there are a number of things that UK businesses and the government could do to meet employer needs in a post-Brexit era. The first thing they could do is look to upskill or incentivise British workers to do the jobs that were previously done by EU workers. They could do this by investing in skills acquisitions such as work-based training and apprenticeships, or by incentivising British workers to take up low-skilled work by increasing the pay and improving the working conditions of those jobs. UK firms could also invest more heavily in labour-saving technology, which would make them more efficient and would make them less reliant on labour. The problem with these is that they require money, and there's a question mark over whether employers will have the money to pay for this, particularly when you consider that from April of this year, some employers will be facing an apprenticeship levy, and some employers are already grappling with the new requirement to automatically enrol their employees in pension schemes. There are things that the government could do. They could introduce visa schemes for specific sectors. So I think the government has already dropped hints that they might reinstate the seasonal agricultural workers scheme to help the agricultural industry out. They could also make it easier for employers to recruit from outside of the EU to meet their skill and their labour needs. The problem is that these will be politically difficult to do because the government have already made a commitment to reduce net migration to the tens of thousands. And I think as we prepare to leave the single market and trigger Article 50, this raises a more difficult question for the government, and that is, how do you ensure economic growth while reducing net migration? Because if you look at economic growth over recent years, what is clear is that a key part of that growth has been the fact that UK businesses and employers have had unrestricted access to the skills and the labour that Europe has had to offer. And if that is restricted and taken away, then the risk is that many employers will simply relocate to other countries where they can source the labour more easily.